Alright, what's poppin', people? We're back. And now today, I've been feeling a little bit of an itch to talk about ADV NU. I had recorded a video where it was sort of an introduction of sorts to ADV NU, but I didn't really like how it was organized. So while I have the recording saved, I'm not gonna upload it. I want to revisit that idea eventually because I think ADV NU is just genuinely one of the most fun bastions for NU. I think it's pretty interesting as well, just given the selection of Pokemon. But anyhow, it's not too important right now. What is important though is obviously ADV NU is in a new Snake Draft, and that tournament's almost over. But I wanted to go over some replays from the tournament, just ones that I don't even know if it's necessarily these are like particular replays I need to find in general. I just think they do a good job overall of showing the diversity that there is in the tier, which feels weird to say because something I think you gotta acknowledge is that ADV NU is a very centralized tier, at least at the top. Like, the best Pokemon of the tier are very hard to justify not using. And I was talking with the people that, was in, Miss Jisu, as I'll call them. They and I had talked about it a fair bit. A lot of the people, I feel, especially early weeks, people just weren't using the good Pokemon. And that was really confusing to me because I'm thinking to myself, you're complaining about losing, and yet you're using bad Pokemon. Like, it's ADV NU, so everything's bad in the grand scheme, but there's still Pokemon that are just better than others. If you want to look at from even just a stats perspective, right? Pokemon like Haunter and Flareon, they stat check like the whole tier. And I'm just like looking at people not using them multiple weeks in a row. And there are others like that too, other Pokemon. And it's just, come on, man. Stop trolling yourself. Stop self-griefing. Anyhow, some of these games I have like a little bit of backstory to. Only the ones that actually like involve my team. Mostly this game here. Kyuzo versus, I believe it's Hyoga Phoenix. So the backstory to this week is that originally my ADV NU slot, because I was managing the team that Kyuzo was on. I don't know where bro went, but he was just gone. Both him and Hyoga did one of the worst jobs of scheduling a game that I've ever seen. And unfortunately, I ended up being the one that had to figure out a sub at the end, like last minute pretty much. Not last minute, but the waning hours of the week. Because I think Hyoga had technically suggested a time. So, had to figure something out there because in tours, if you miss the time, well, the onus is then on you to, if the other person is still available, you better get in contact. If they're not, then, tough luck. Regardless of that, I'm looking for literally anyone to play. Ask Cutes. Originally, I wasn't going to have him play this week because he said he was going to be busy. And I think this was on Saturday or Sunday. I honestly don't remember which day. I just asked him, like, hey, man, you wanna play some ADV this week for us? And he said, sure. And this replay is fun as I passed him this team here. We got this nice little Octillery lead. And lead Octillery this game is about to show everyone, the entire class, why it is a very, very funny Pokemon. So, I think when people associate Octillery's spot in this tier, it would be with its position on Baton Pass teams. Baton Pass isn't... You could argue whether or not Baton Pass is overpowered in ADV NU. I think the tier has tools for it. I also think that it should still be nuked from the tier. But Octillery is the best recipient for Baton Pass boosts. The main reason is, possibilities, suction cups. You can't phase it out. And so something like Wailord, for instance, which has, it runs bulky sets with Roar sometimes. Yeah, those just lose to a stat boosted Octillery. You can't get rid of it. It just stays in. And that's huge. It makes disrupting the chain all the harder, all the more difficult, I guess I should say. Now, if you get a phaser in early, yes, you could still, disrupt the chain that way. But it means that a boosted Octillery, even if it only has one stat boost, that that's already going to make it problematic enough to where it can at least start putting in some work, and then you're just basically left trying to deal with it defensively. Which can maybe be a little bit harder, you know, when your defensive water type literally cannot answer it because its only attack is Surf and it's reliant on Roar to beat you. Yeah, that's a problem. It also means, you know, Octillery gets behind a substitute, you're even more problematic. Or you're even more at risk of just losing on the spot. But the other big reason is Octillery's coverage, and that's what's going to come into play this game here. Octillery's coverage is insane. It gets, like, obviously Stab Surf, but it also gets moves like Fire Blast, Ice Beam, and Hidden Power back in this gen, so you can have, like, Hidden Power Electric to hit other water types. And we're going to watch this coverage put in work. So Octillery lead against a Flareon. Flareon can't OHKO Octillery, even if you're like max special attack. You're not beating this guy down. So Octillery is free to just throw off a Surf here, or a Thunder Wave on a Bricked Switch. Now this set's actually like Lumberry lead, because it's really good against Baton Pass teams. Usually they lead off with a Venomoth. And so, you know, Venomoth's like whole thing in earlier gens, where there's no team preview, is capitalizing on its really good speed stat and access to sleep powder. So you're trying to be that fast sleep lead that enables faster paced teams to get momentum going in their way early on. And so a lot of leads you'll see in ADV NU, if you are worried genuinely about your matchup against Baton Pass, you'll just see some sort of Lumberry Pokemon. You know, whether it's in this case Octillery or Sudowoodo, or even, sometimes Flareon lead will run Chesto Berry, because they'll do Chesto Rest. And that works similarly in this regard. But, anyhow, again, that's not too important. Cutes immediately then gets to Fire Blast. I don't know why the Cacturn stayed in. I'm guessing that Hyuga just wanted to throw something out the next... Okay. I don't know what that all is. I'm guessing he just wanted to stay in because he wanted to get a safer switch next turn. Regardless, again, so Pelipper protects. The Cutes told me this was a misclick. This Thunder Wave, he meant to just HP Electric. It works out incredibly though. So he Toxics, we see the Lumberry activate, and he just dies to HP Electric. So at least in the context of the game, it looks like the most expert bait ever. Now again, Octillery is going to OHKO this Metang. There is nothing it can do about it except dodge. Unfortunately, this does end up dodging the attack. If that Fire Blast hit, I'm of the belief that this Octillery was claiming all 6. And now he then switches to Metang here. The Protect's always going to happen. You're just going to try to Toxic Stall here. And we're going to see Cutes miss a Meteor Mash. I forget if Armatang has Earthquake or not. I've gone through a couple phases where I do Protox Metang with Meteor Mash Explosion instead of Meteor Mash Earthquake, which has its benefits, it also has its drawbacks. Here we're going to see the Mash at least go off, and then you get to protect the next turn just to make sure that you're out of EQ range. If this is Boom Metang, we'll see the Boom next. I mean, there's really not a better play, and Yoga, I am a little surprised he didn't go for Protect there just to see what was going to happen. But my guess is that he just, you know, why the hell are you going to expect Explosion, right? I feel like, you know, he's probably, well, at the end of the day, right? The Metang mashed the Metang instead of just trying to trade Earthquakes. I think that should probably set off some alarm bells. Maybe he thought it was a different filler move last, like a light screen. You know, I've played some test games with HeySup where he had light screen last on Metang. So maybe that was the thought. Anyhow, the Octillery is back, and we're going to see a great read by Cutes. He's just going to Surf the Flareon and OHKO it. Again, this Mon could have claimed so far all of these without even losing health. Well, it's not all of these. All of these we're making like a sort of knight, a chess piece knight move right there. Anyhow, the Haunter comes out now. And Cutes does not want to give this boy a substitute, so he's just going to spam out Surf until the Octillery faints. And from here, obviously Hyuga's on the back foot. If you're trying to analyze his team, because a big part of playing these non-preview generations is you kind of have to know common structures and just be able to like look at a person's team as they've revealed things and kind of guess, okay, what kind of like team idea do they have, or what have I seen? What is this person's team so far in need of? you know, just maybe defensively. You know, oh, he hasn't revealed a Pokemon that resists water, for instance, so he must have a water resist somewhere. That kind of, like, just thinking is really important here. And I'm trying to think about, like, the last Pokemon. I'll be honest, it's kind of hard to guess what it would be. My guess would honestly be something fast, or something that could set up and boost speed. Because Soul Pokemon above... Soul Pokemon with any amount of speed being Haunter feels a little bit meh. This tier isn't known for its plethora of fast Pokemon. However, I do feel that you still can afford on most teams, unless you're going just super stall, 2 Pokemon with over 300 speed. And we're going to see again the Haunter sub. It's sub Haze. I think I remember being told this was a mistake on the side of Hyoga. It wasn't meant to be this set. I think it was... I forget, it was supposed to be either dropping Haze for a move or dropping Substitute. My guess would be Haze. Anyhow, since he's sub Pattaya, Thunderbolt's could do a lot to Chimecho. I believe we are a bulkier Chime. Regardless, we see that it's a Chimecho last. I personally feel like it's kind of unnecessary. Like, you got Pelipper plus Haunter plus Batang. Mostly Pelipper plus Haunter. I guess this covers a little bit more of the Pupitar matchup, and that's probably what he was going for. But I feel he probably could have gotten that with, like, a Hitmonchan or something last. And I only suggest Hitmonchan last because it gives you a little bit more speed somewhere. Just having priority Mach Punch is still really good. And Pupitar doesn't set up versus much on this kind of team. You know, it can't set up versus Haunter reliably because Psychic just does so much. And, you know, if he's ever subbing down into Pattaya range, after the Dragon Dance, right, Haunter's going to be slower than Pupitar, so it's always going to get to sub down, sub down, sub down after taking the hit. Or after having its sub broken. Basically what I'm getting at is, I don't know why there's a Chimecho here, other than Chimecho being one of the best Pokemon in the tier, which is enough reason on its own. I just feel like it could have been something else. Regardless, we're going to see the Chimecho Wars. These are a pretty common sight in ADV NU. You just see Calm Mind Chimecho. It's part of the reason I like Hidden Power Dark sometimes on my Chimechos. I think overall Hidden Power Fire ends up being better on a game-to-game basis because you don't want Matang to be able to just sit in front of you and beat you down. And you still get neutral damage versus other Chimecho. You have neutral damage versus Murkrow as well, which can be important. But Hidden Power Dark just makes these sequences really favorable. And again, there's nothing really common. Basically what just happens here is until one of the players gets a crit, or in this case Hyoga just slowly whittles down Cutes' Chimecho. That is all we're playing to. And what ends up actually happening is Cutes gets a crit here. Now, this crit did not matter. As Cutes said, he had a Choice Band Shadow Balm on in the back. I believe it's Murkrow in the back. So, with Matang being as low as it is, and of course Chimecho, it will feint to Shadow Ball, I believe, from that range. The crit, like, it doesn't matter. Cutes has the tools at this point on his side to win the game from here, even if he doesn't get that crit. I mean, it's something too to keep in mind, right? I don't think Hyoga was gonna KO. Wait, no, he was. Regardless, so 6%, he would have been at like 53 after Hidden Power. So again, Murkrow's KOing, Matang is taking like 27 to 33-ish or so. So he's not in 2-hit KO range, but he's still probably going to protect. And, I mean, regardless, I don't remember what all we have in the back. I know there's a Murkrow. I know there's a Roselia, I think. And in last Mond, probably our own Haunter. Like, genuinely all it is at that point for the game is you just preserve your own, or you don't have to preserve. So Chime feints if you don't get the crit, and then you go Murkrow and you throw off Shadow Ball. Matang has to come in just because you're not sacking Chime. You can just go out to Rose at that point, I think. Actually, what you probably do is go into your own, what's it called? I imagine that you go into Haunter on Matang. You do live a mash, and he probably is going to have to protect after taking the first Shadow Ball, so that gives you Haunter to just put Matang in range with the next choice Fan Shadow Ball. That at least is what I would envision this game playing out long term being like. Anyhow, next game. So we got Mr. Su versus Neomon. Now these are two of the players that I do believe performed the best in the pool. They're also two of the players that I feel had the best grasp on this meta. Neomon, I'm not like... It's weird, sometimes I feel like Neomon brings some really jank stuff, but I do feel like he showed some pretty cool Pokemon. Or at least I thought one. He brought Wigglytuff a fair bit this tour. I thought it actually looked pretty good. When you think about Pokemon in ADV NU that don't have a lot of great consistent counterplay, Haunter's one of them. I think Wigglytuff is a pretty cool bring to have like a genuinely consistent Haunter like counter, damn near. Because the only way Haunter's ever getting past you is Explosion. You know, you think about some other like Haunter checks, that's all they are, right? They're checks. Even something like Cacturn, which deals with Thunderbolt plus Psychic coverage, it can get lured by Hidden Power Fire Haunter variants. Those aren't too common because, you know, pre-Generation 7, I think, you had the whole Hidden Power affecting IVs thing. Hidden Power Fire drops your speed IV. And so, for the mirror matchup, that was always a little bit hard to justify. But it's still a possibility, especially if you had, like, a Salic Berry Haunter. But Wigglytuff, again, like we said, the only thing it worries about is Explosion, or getting really unlucky with, like, Thunderbolt Paralysis or Psychic Special Defense drops. And because Wigglytuff's going to be running Wish plus Protect, you even have some more extra room for air. Anyhow, all that to say, let's get into this game. I don't remember this matchup super well, I'll be honest. I don't really remember any of these too well. Other than this game, I remember how this one ends. But when you see the lead, Flareon versus Glalie, Glalie probably switching out because you want to try to preserve the possibility of a triple spike later, and he stays in and instead dies to Fire Blast. That's really the other line with Glalie. I feel like with Glalie there's usually two mindsets when you see it as a lead. It's either, I'm going to just throw up at least two mindsets when like you're dealing with a lead that you lose to, right? It's either, I'm just going to spike up once and die, or hope for a dodge, because these run Bright Powder, because for some reason that's allowed. You either throw up that one spike and just say, okay, that's all I need, or you preserve and like double back immediately to Glalie the next turn, in hopes that you have a better matchup. And then you can look for triple spike. And yeah, Neomon goes to Flareon. He reveals that he's Silk Scarf with Double Edge. A set that we've honestly seen really rise heavily to prominence, I would say, in this tournament. It's always been a set, but I feel this tour, especially, in NUPL last year, it was Flail Flareon with HeySup using that a lot. I think if we were going to say a Flareon set that defined this tour, it'd be this set. Because Double Edge with Silk Scarf from Flareon, keep in mind, Flareon, for whatever reason, this mon has 130 physical attack. That move does so much damage, and when you think about what's probably switching into Flareon, much of the time it's a bulky water type that's taking like 12 million from Double Edge. So it's just a really good way to say I am overwhelming all of the bulky water types. And potentially what this is playing into, we see Spike, also yeah, Diglett is terrible. This mon doesn't trap anything, I'm sorry, but it doesn't trap anything. But when we see Spike lead plus this sort of Flareon, some of the sets, or maybe some of the teams that you could come in mind, or that would come to mind, is possible for Neomon would be something with like just water overwhelming. You know, you think about this Flareon, we're going to see it get a very lucky crit there, it does not kill otherwise. We're going to see it crit the Wailord there. And he might be running, like, you know, a Huntail, for instance. Spikes help break down bulky water types. Obviously, Double Edge Flareon's great at doing that, too. Haunter kinda can. I mean, some people rely on the water types to soft check it. We actually had a very fortunate crit for Jisu there. And yeah, so here's the Huntail. And yes, this is a very fun time, too, right? So in ADV, if a Pokemon faints to spikes like that, the turn ends. In a modern gen, Neomon would have been able to set up Rain Dance there, but he doesn't get to in this game. And now, unfortunately for him, yeah, he's dealing with a Blossom. Now, yeah, so, I mean, this is probably over, I would guess. If we're just right about the team comp, which we're not, there is Eradicate here. Now, admittedly, I guess you could still have Eradicate play into this playstyle, though. I'm more just thinking, like, imagine like a Wailord here, and then something else. He had a different, just very like just offensive team, just not playing into the same theme that I was thinking about. But in that Huntail versus Blossom exchange, this game was very short. But what's very important here is this Ice Beam hit, 50%. Now, the only other really relevant Sunny Day sweeper in ADV NU is Tangela. Tangela does not have the special bulk to really contend with these sorts of Weather Sweeper mirrors. Like, when you're dealing with Huntail versus Tangela, you don't live Ice Beam because you just don't have the bulk to. And I think that's such a huge limiter for Tangela and its overall application. When I've been building in this tier, really the only time that I'm ever able to just look at a team and go, yeah, you know what, I want Tangela here instead of Blossom, is if I'm so weak to physical attackers otherwise, and I just need to somehow find a little bit of extra bulk, while maybe still retaining the late game. Because Tangela is a little stronger. So you do get a little bit better of damage rolls versus foes like Haunter versus Chimecho versus, I mean, hell, even Golbat. I guess you can kill it from a higher range with Hidden Power Fire Under the Sun. But this kind of thing here, just being so much weaker to opposing water types, if you're having to ever set up the Sun versus them, it's rough. It really is rough. I honestly think Neomon's Neomon's best way of winning this game was probably, like, his Huntail being slower is a little surprising. I always just go max, mostly for the mirror. Some people will opt for bulk. I think Neomon's play was probably to Rain Dance, though, in front of this. Just to, like, force the Bell to go for Solar Beam and not have the Sun up. Even if it means you're sacking your Huntail, you could potentially get in afterwards, like your Eradicate, and threaten to pop the Bell. Afterwards, I don't know. I'm unsure if it actually would have mattered. I think you spam Rain Dance, though, until you see the Blossom charge up a Solar Beam, and then you throw off an Ice Beam. Because then you get the Revenge Kill afterwards. Anyhow, you live and you learn. Now, next up, HeySup versus Raichi. HeySup is probably viewed as the best ADV NUer. I would say so. I think there's a lot of room for debate, but the dude definitely knows this tier very well. And as I mentioned earlier, in NUPL last year, he 1000% was a large reason for Pinchberry Flareon becoming so problematic. Not problematic, but so common. Flail plus like Salic Berry on it was just a really good late game cleaner. And you have like Flamethrower and Hidden Power Grass to cover a lot of the other Pokemon that could potentially deal with your max power Flail. Anyhow, let's play this game. So, Venomoth lead. The sirens in my head are going off, and I immediately am assuming a Baton Pass team. Seeing Flareon lead from HeySup, though, I mean, there's a lot this could be. He probably switches always, and yeah, he does. And it reveals to be probably just a Silk Scarf Flareon. Torkoal coming out does mean that this is not Baton Pass, so you're just looking at, like, him wanting the fast sleep lead. And we're going to see HeySup just throw off another Double Edge, because there's not really anything Torkoal can do back. You know, Toxic or Exploding versus Flareon are really the only two things that it's got going for itself there. And, I mean, if the Flareon is able to force Torkoal to boom, that could potentially just be worth it for HeySup. So, you know, it's a pretty, like, reasonable trade depending on what your team has. Anyhow, Torkoal goes for Protect. Obviously, it's going to need to get back its health. And now he gets to get Venomoth back in. Toxapeus obviously not mattering. This is a poison type. Can't poison those. And HeySup's going to say that he gets to have Pelipper as the sleeper. So, I see throw off a Psychic. Now I am expecting this to be like just 3 attacks, potentially. It could also still be Baton Pass. We do see 3 attacks. I'm guessing Sleep Powder, Psychic, Hidden Power, Fire, Giga Drain. And we actually see the Leiron, and it is... Leiron's weird. It's Matang, but not as bulky, if I'm remembering right. And not weak to fire. But also an awful bit slower. But it has stab on rock moves. You know, there's some differences. Leiron's just kind of bad. The typing ends up being more bad than good because gaining a neutrality to fire, you know, losing a weakness to fire, does not compensate for all of the weaknesses that rock typing gives you. You know, now you're weak to fighting, now you're weak to water, now you don't resist grass. It just doesn't really give you a whole lot of good. So even though Overheat would have cooked a Matang, this is still not exactly a great outlook. I'm guessing Mawile just pivot in on this. I don't really know what Leftovers reveals on this guy, because Leiron is not a very common Pokemon. We see him going for Roar, and a Pikachu comes out. Pikachu's kind of funny. It's not a great mon, but it's very hard to wall. The main issue for it is just the bulk. Actually getting it in is really hard, and so you are forced into these like double... I was gonna say double Baton Pass. You're not running Baton Pass with Overheat. But you're very much forced into having Baton Pass support for Pika. Otherwise, you're dealing with like playing a 5v6. I think a lot of the time you're better off with just Plusle or Minun, because they, you know, they don't have the fragility issues. And we're gonna see Raichi now. Again, he has to just try to pivot around the Pika, limit its impact as best he can. Unfortunately, it's gonna be kind of hard to do that, as Pikachu's given any more times to attack. We can see the Cacturne now pivot in versus Moth. Probably just take this turn to lay up Spike, I'd guess. Yeah. He does have his potential spinner with Hitmonchan. Not seeing an item does make me think there's a chance it's CB. Actually, I want to see the damage it did to Pele. So that is a crit doing 30, but that still feels like it's probably Choice Band damage. Anyhow, Flareon gets out. It is going to be KOing this Torkoal. It is taking something down with it. I lied. He's actually switching to Cacturne because this is a better play. There's really no reason to risk giving up your Flareon there yet, when it could still be very useful for checking Blossom. And he also revealed, again, just HeySup at his damned Pinch Berry. So he reveals that he's Ender Salic Berry Cacturne here. I have never seen anyone run this set, but it does give him a extra hit off of the Moth. We actually had these double Powder Venomoth, which is interesting. Flareon is going to come in now, though, again. And he just gets a little bit more chip on the Moth. Now, unfortunately, Moth is very fast. So, actually getting to the point where you KO it is kind of tricky. Since HeySup would Pelipper, that is a, you know, telling sign that he doesn't have, like, a Haunter last. Something fast that could actually just pick this off. So instead, he's just going to go to the Mon that can't be statused and hope for, you know, a Wake. And so far, he's not getting it, which is potentially very, very problematic. He does get it here, and Surf does end up KOing. This could have been a lot worse if Pelipper didn't have Moth in KO range, because then you're being forced to, like... You know, I don't know what the hell last would be on this team. If I'm thinking about it. Probably something that helps with Pupitar. He's Endure with a Salic Berry, which makes me think that he might just be having this as his Pupitar answer, which is kind of wild. You know, like you let it Dragon Dance up once and then you Endure. He actually is Haunter last, which is very weird to me that he wouldn't go into it versus the Moth. Unless it was just guaranteed that Pelipper was going to wake up and I'm just not noticing that. Regardless. Haunter gets to KO the Leiron and booms versus the Bell. This gives HeySup quite good chances of winning from here, because Hitmonchan shouldn't ever be able to win this. You will be able to just get Pelipper back to full, or not back to full, but back to enough health with the combination of Protect, Turn Manipulation for lefties, and then just also throwing away Pokemon. just to make sure that it's got as much health as possible. You're just trying to make sure that out of range of like a crit. Which at this point, I believe he is. And so a nice little surf will KO this Hitmonchan. That is our game 3. We're going to go to one more game here. I saved up 4. Just because I thought, you know what, let's do 4 replays. That feels like a nice number. Also, I was trying to get some matches that are between... You know, we had the Cutes versus Hyoga match first, which I just thought was a really good example of Octillery in a non-BP setting. And then just some matches between people that are pretty good at the tier. And this last match is Jisu. I believe it's actually versus Raichi as well. I think that's who Summerlight is. But I'm not. Actually, no, I am positive. And now we see it, just like in the first game with Jisu, we see another Flareon versus Glalie. And this time, it's going to be a Flamethrower Flareon. And we're going to see Raichi opt to preserve the Glalie. Make sure that it is around for later on, potentially to get up more than just one layer spike. And we are going to just need a lot of annoying stuff in these first few turns. Nothing really happening. But now the Wailord is out. And yeah, so... You know a tier's good when Wailord is considered one of the best breakers. Anyhow, again, Jisu's Wail gets crit for the second game in a row. That crit doesn't matter at all. I mean, Wail is dying to a boom. But you did see that damage it put out. That was some good chip. Also, yeah, he's got he's got 2 what's it called? Water types. Which I think if you're ever running Dugong, you're kind of forced into double water types because it doesn't check. Okay, Dugong you're not. I'd say Whiscash you are. I'm not running Whiscash without a Wailord. I still think Dugong does have some incentive to be run with Wail, because it doesn't check Pupitar at all. And well, it outspeeds it, but if the Pupitar, you know, is ever out, you don't get to go into your Dugong to then check it, because you're just gonna get Dragon Danced on his switch in, and then Rock Slid and bopped into oblivion. But in this game, we are seeing Dugong put a lot of work. This looks like it's one of those more offensive variants. And we haven't seen a water type revealed from Raichi's side, which is kind of weird. Until you see that it's a Huntail. Huntail you always want to preserve your health on. With any Weather Sweeper, you really do. Because this doesn't do anything defensively that you would want a water type to do. I mean, it's getting beaten down by the Narwhal. Like, what the hell, man? This is just very sad. And the Raichi team does have a lot of potential win cons. Like, I would say this Chimecho is likely going to be Rest with Calm Mind last. Or I guess it could... Rest Talk... Are we Rest Talk CM out here? I don't know for certain. But, anyhow, back on point. We have a Flareon out again. So, okay. Well, there's a Furret here. Ah, here's me talking about this lovely Furret. Yeah, so Furret is a Pokemon that is in this game. I did not remember there was a Furret in this replay. Oof. Interesting. Yeah, the Dugong's back out again. He's gonna pivot into the Blossom here. Again, we're just seeing that, like, kind of HP manipulation with how you can switch around at the end of a turn and get leftovers recovery. I don't know why it works like this, but it does. And we're just seeing Jisu make sure that the Dugong is out of range of Flareons and Power Grass. We're just trying to play that end game as safely as possible. Pupitar comes back out again, and I'm guessing Jisu's Dugong might be slower, given that he switched it out. Which is interesting, because earlier on he played it like it was just going to be faster. So, I don't exactly know what to take from that. But I'll say this Flareon is definitely... Well, I was going to say it definitely doesn't have bulk investment. I don't know if that's, like, true, though. Seeing Protect on it makes me think that it's either Toxic or Wish Blast. But I feel you would have bulk on a Protox or Wish Tech lead Flareon. It just feels kind of necessary to me. Regardless, at this point, Jisu's just kind of trying to get their last Pokemon in. You're gonna see the Dugong come out here. It's gonna pick off the Flareon, I'm guessing. Yeah. And then Pupitar will come out. He's forced to attack the Dugong because you never get to set up versus a Dugong. The Pupitar does not set up versus it. And we see this little Pika-P at the end. No, we will not be. No, stop that. And yeah, this game was very interesting. Raichi had very aggressive offense. Very aggressive offense. There was a rest Chimecho and a protect Flareon. Regardless, a faster paced team with a Furret at the end. And just another nice, just standard Flareon lead balance out of Jisu. I think that's gonna be it for this one, guys. This was a fun one. I just enjoy getting to talk about these old tiers because they're really fun. And that's really about it. They're fun. And I don't have to deal with the constant meta shifts that current gen NU has. Or current gen anything, really. It's just nice to be able to, like, quote-unquote solve these metas. And then just slowly accrue a wealth of knowledge that I could then put out to y'all. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, of course. If you're watching to this point, you may as well drop a like. You may as well subscribe also if you haven't. And if you already are subscribed, well, I get ring the bell. Sure. I hope y'all having a lovely day. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.